The Elder Scrolls Online just released its newest skill called Banner Bearer, which turns you into a literal boss on the battlefield. This skill is completely customizable via the new scribing system, and it's adding a lot of flexibility and power to my builds, so I wanted to break it down for you in this video. Plus, there are tons of new class balance changes happening this patch, as well as part of Update 44, which are bound to change your build, so I wanted to make sure to highlight those as well, and we'll get into all of that in this video. But first, let's talk about the Banner Bearer skill. So as I said, this is a brand new skill added to ESO, which players can unlock from the scribing vendor, and now this skill is technically a part of the Alliance War skill line, so you will need to have progressed that to at least rank 5 as well, and this one falls under the Assault skill line. But once you see what this skill can do, you'll find that it's definitely a lot more than just a PvP skill. It can be used effectively on a variety of builds for group and even solo content in both PvE and PvP, and it is really unique. Alright, so here's how I have the skill set up currently on my Magicka Dragonite. So in this case, flame damage is going to increase damage done by damage over time effects by 6%. You can see the cost here is actually a recovery cost, which is pretty interesting as well. So it's going to reduce my own health, Magicka, and stamina recovery to keep the banner active. Now, I also set this up with my class mastery signature script, and that's because I'm primarily playing solo on this build, so I like how this increases weapon and spell damage and damage reduction based on how many enemies are within the area. And then for the affix script, I just have minor heroism, so that's going to help a lot with the ultimate generation for this build, and of course sustain because it's a Dragonite. Now that's just how I have it set up. Obviously there's a lot of different options here, but basically they're focused on buffs and utility. We saw how the flame script is going to increase dot effects. There's also an immobilize script, which actually cleanses you and your group of snares and immobilizations. This is actually incredibly powerful for PvP content. They even increased the cost of this one because I think it is just that powerful. If you're running in groups in PvP or in battlegrounds, this is going to be a pretty amazing option. The magic script increases magical damage for you and your group. There's damage mitigation. You want to increase tankiness. The multi-target script is going to increase AoE effect damage. There's physical damage for martial damage increase. There's a really nice reduced cost. That's going to be reducing cost of non-ultimate abilities by 8%. And then the shock script simply increases damage done with direct damage abilities. So yeah, you can see there in just the focus scripts, there's a lot of variety in terms of whether you want to play solo, in a group, if you are being support, tank, DPS. I think there's honestly like a lot of different ways you could use this. In terms of signature scripts, Cavalier's Charge is going to increase weapon and spell damage based on movement speed buffs, which is kind of interesting. It's probably going to be more PvP oriented. Again, class mastery, depending on whatever class you're using. Crusader's Defiance is going to reduce the effectiveness of negative snares. I'm not sure why you would need that in case you were using Immobilize, but I guess you could use something else there. So Druid's Resurgence, a little bit of recovery buff here. I don't think this is super useful. Sage's Remedy does add a small heal over time, or basically a heal every 2 seconds. Thief's Swiftness is pretty interesting to reduce cost of sprint. And then we have War Mage's Defense, a small damage shield that procs every 3 seconds. And then Warfare's Mastery is really interesting as well. You count as being in a PvP area for Battle Resurrection, which reduces the time it takes to resurrect another player. Again, a really interesting option for support in more coordinated groups. But then the affix scripts I think are nice also. You can get Minor Berserk added to this, Major Brutality and Sorcery, obviously. I think Minor Courage is going to be popular, as well as Minor Heroism. That's what I'm running on this particular solo setup. Can get Minor Intellect, Minor Endurance, Minor Protection, Minor Resolve, and then Major Savagery and Major Prophecy. So yeah, all in all, I am a big fan of the different utility options that this ability has. And just so you can kind of see more clearly what it looks like and what the range is. Here you can see the range. Again, I have this set up with the flame focus, so that's why it looks that way. Different focuses will have different visuals, obviously. But you can see the range is a pretty good size, pretty large. And it is a toggle, so that's one of the things that you will need to get used to with this ability. You just toggle it on, and then it remains on. But the other thing here is you have to have it double barred. If I don't have this on my back bar and I swap, it'll actually just fade away like that. But if you do have it double barred, then you'll have no problem keeping that ability. It'll just stay toggled on the entire time. And now there are a lot of other changes that I wanted to mention specifically in terms of combat and class balance that are coming out as part of Update 44. This is already live for PC, coming soon for consoles as well. More focus scripts are getting added to scribing if this is a system that you have access and if that's something that you enjoy theory crafting. So Vault is getting bleed damage, Smash is getting poison damage, Elemental Explosion is getting physical damage, that's interesting. Traveling Knife getting frost damage, that's pretty cool as well. Wield Soul is getting a lot of more damage types, including flame damage, disease damage, and bleed damage. And that's also true for Soul Burst, getting disease, flame, and bleed damage. Wolfseal's Contingency is getting shock and bleed damage added to it. Torchbearer getting frost damage, and Trample getting frost damage as well. So we can see this is a system that they're going to continually update and add more scripts to, allowing for more customized build options. But there's also a surprising amount of class changes that I want to make sure that you're aware of. Some things that will definitely be affecting your build in ESO moving forward. For example, with the Dragon Knight class, we saw a change to the Cauterize ability. It now heals up to 4 nearby allies every 3 seconds, rather than healing 1 nearby ally every 5 seconds. They did reduce the healing per tick by 33%, and they increased the cost slightly, but I do like the faster tick rate on this, and obviously being able to heal more nearby players is going to help a lot in your supporting abilities as a Dragon Knight. Moving on to the Templar class next, Focus Charge and its morphs will now taunt enemies for 15 seconds. They also increase the duration of the major protection granted from this ability, and the Toppling Charge morph to 7 seconds. That's up from 4, and they did increase the cost slightly. A couple things to keep in mind here is that Explosive Charge, even though this has an AoE effect, the morph's taunt only applies to the first enemy hit, so it's not an AoE taunt specifically. But with this one, they did increase the duration of major protection to 15 seconds, which is huge. And as far as the Toppling Charge morph, this is going to rank up in cost reduction rather than damage. So you're going to have the same cost from before with a slight damage reduction and, of course, the longer duration for the major protection buff. Now, Sun Shield did get some changes as well. This is now going to apply minor maim to enemies in the area for 10 seconds. They also increased the damage shield scaling per enemy hit to 10%, up from 4%, which is really nice for that damage shield size, though there is a slight cost increase. So Radiant Ward is going to be the damage shield morph of choice here. That's going to scale up to 20% per enemy hit for your damage shield. It's still going to get the cost reduction, which is nice. And Blazing Shield, this morph's damage now scales up to 33% of the damage the shield absorbed at rank 4, up from 30%. So just something to keep in mind there. Now, Nightblades did have quite a few interesting changes here, specifically when it gets to Cloak. But first, let's talk about Teleport Strike. And Lotus Fan, this morph is now going to deal an initial hit in an area around the caster and applies the damage over time effect to all enemies hit. So they did adjust the dot effect here to operate similar to skills like Burning Talons, for example. It's going to be a short duration, 5 seconds, down from the 20-second previous duration, but they are increasing the tick rate to every 1 second, and then obviously increasing the damage. So it's an AoE short duration, powerful dot. Switching over to Shadow Cloak now, this ability and the Shadowy Disguise morph are now going to be toggled abilities moving forward in Update 44, rather than the duration-based skills that we know of. So while active, it's going to drain Magicka every 2 seconds, rather than having the base cost. And while active and moving, it's also going to disable your own Magicka recovery. But if you're stationary, that cost is cut in half to allow for more strategic use. In addition to this, you're going to get a new unique buff. It's called Born from the Shadow, 10-second duration when the ability is activated. And again, when the ability ends, which increases damage done against monsters by 10%. So I know this is a bit of a controversial change. I'll go ahead and read through the developer comment in case you have any questions about it. So what they say is, in this pass, we're looking at the opportunity cost of Shadow Cloak, trying to create a more accessible skill for any Nightblade build, while simultaneously ensuring there are more stark costs associated with maintaining invisibility. So the toggled nature should make the activation of the skill feel smoother to weave in and out of the shadows, while disabling Magicka recovery while moving should stomp out the ability to remain undetected perpetually without serious investment. In addition to that, they're adding small benefits for the skill and PvE content, where you get that Born from the Shadows buff. So that's it in terms of Nightblade changes. Again, pretty big if you're using that skill a lot, especially in PvP. Let me know what you think about those changes down in the comments section below. But moving on to Sorcerer class changes next. Conjured Ward did get a slight nerf here, reducing the heal scaling of this ability to match the scaling of Regenerative Ward, which means it's a 10% of your max health or max Magicka heal down from 15%. So that's just the healing portion of the skill. Didn't change the damage shield portion at all. Couple fixes for Daedric Curse and Expert Summoner, as well as Storm Calling. So not a lot of changes for Sorcerer other than, the heal from your damage shield. Warden's got a couple of fixes as well in terms of Feral Companion. And Glacial Presence, this passive now increases the chance of applying the chilled status effect from any source rather than only Winter's Embrace abilities. So kind of buffing that Ice Mage playstyle, which is a good thing. Then moving on to Necromancer class changes. Ghostly Embrace now deals frost damage rather than magic damage. It also no longer applies minor maim on each hit, and it now applies new effects instead of the original crowd control debuffs. The first area now guarantees the chilled status effect, which also is going to apply minor maim. The second area now applies a frost damage over time effect for 5 seconds, similar to Burning Talons rather than immobilizing. And then the final area now generates a corpse if at least one enemy was hit rather than stunning enemies. So this ability specifically has been going through a lot of changes. Let's go ahead and read the developer comment on this one as well. So last update, they shook up this morph to try to add some love to the damage-dealing Necromancer, but they didn't have time to iterate on it. So instead of having a hybrid damage/control ability, they've reworked the morph to focus mainly on damage and leaving the other morph for control and utility. And the new function should add some more power to the ability to make it more satisfying, while hopefully becoming a mainstay in high-density encounters or even as short-term form maintenance damage over time to fill in gaps in rotations. And then they mention, the corpse generation, which again is really nice. And you can combine this with skills like Shocking Siphon, which require a corpse to cast. So yeah, pretty good update for this skill. I haven't had a lot of time to test it myself, but I will be throwing it into new versions of my Necromancer builds and checking it out. Finally, the Arcanist did get a few changes as well. Runespite Ward and the Impervious Rune Ward morph reduced the size of the damage shield after 1 second by 56%. And then Rune Guard of Freedom, they reduced the healing granted by this morph by 50% and increased the armor granted just slightly here at 3,300 up from 3,000. They also increased the duration of the armor and crowd control immunity to 7 seconds. So that's it in terms of class balance changes. Now, of course, there are new companions coming out with update 44 as well. That's one of the other bigger changes coming in this patch. Tanloran and Zarethvar are actually free if you have an ESO Plus subscription currently. You can pick up their quest lines from the Crown Store, and then you can complete those quests just as you would any other companion. If you don't have ESO Plus, it's 1,000 crowns per companion, or you can get a bundle, 1,500 crowns to unlock both companion quest lines. Now, the devs did verify that once you do complete the quest lines, even if you cancel your ESO Plus subscription, you'll still have the companion on your account. I know some people were asking that question. Now, I did do a full companion build breakdown in my other video last week, so I'll put a link for that here if you want to check it out. I've thoroughly tested both companions in terms of tanking, healing, DPS, and utility. There's a lot of really fun builds that you can make with both of these characters, so I do recommend you check them out. And obviously, if you have ESO Plus, it's a no-brainer because they are free for you to get started with. And now we're also continuing to update our members-only builds and guides on this channel, including the unkillable Magicka Dragonite build you saw me playing during this video, which has over 50k in damage shields, tons of self-healing and survivability, and it's perfect for any content in the game, whether it's solo or not. That off-meta build and many more are available to our Tier 2 channel members called the Elite Squad, plus even more perks like early access to videos and members-only Discord. So if that sounds good to you, just click on the join button down below or the members link in the description to see everything we have on offer, and make sure to select the Tier 2 Elite Squad as your membership option. Huge shout out as always to our members who make this channel possible. I could not do what I do without you, so thanks again. Thanks to all of you for watching this video, and as always, I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.